Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar titled Curating Personal Care Journeys Without Compromising Security Measures. My name is Jeanette Wider, and I'm Managing Editor of Healthcare Innovation. Today's program is sponsored by PowBox. Thank you to our sponsor and to our audience for giving us your time and attention today. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping details. To submit a question, please use the Q&A box to the left of your video window at any time. You do not have to wait until the end of the program. For technical issues, please press F5 to refresh, and if that doesn't work, you can submit a question with your issue through the Q&A panel. Finally, join our webinar conversation on Twitter. You can tweet using the hashtag HILiveWebinar. At this time, I'd like to introduce Carrie Weissall, Associate Principal at the TARDIS Group. Hi, Carrie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Happy to be here.
Good, good. So I was thinking we could start this conversation by you introducing yourself, your title, your background, your role, anything you deem relevant for our audience today.
I'm not really a big title person, but I have been in multiple areas of IT, healthcare IT for 25 plus years. Anyway, I have had roles from infrastructure all the way up through my last 10, 11 years were solely security, which is my favorite area to be. I've worked with very, very large health systems. I'm consulting with very, very small health systems, everything in between. I really do think part of my role in life is to make security less scary. Like, I can geek out if I need to, or sometimes I just want to, right? But I really think we need to do a better job of speaking English. And our habit is to speak IT, right? We have more acronyms, I think, than the military. But my goal at the end of the day is that if I left that meeting, what I said made sense, and nobody's freaking out and thinking they got to go spend an hour on the internet to figure out what the heck I said that day. So that's always my goal.
Great, great. And we like that here. So the first question I have for you, in your years of experience that you just shared with us, how have you seen the patient journey evolve over time? I mean, it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, and I think time is definitive, right? So if we say, take a slice of the last 20 years ago, you would have called your doctor. You'd have went and saw them in their office. You'd get paper bills. You'd have paper copy. If you had tests done, you got a 2 to 3 day wait. Someone's going to call me, right? I'm going to know what happened. Now, today, we're doing one of my least favorite catchphrases of digital transformation. But in the healthcare sense, it truly is transformative. We're not retail. You haven't been shopping online for health services all this time, but you can today. You know, this is how I make my appointment. This is how I get all of my results. This is how I'm looking at health grades. How are you doing? And I think probably the biggest piece in the past is once you had a doctor, you kind of were tied to their health system, right? You're a Henry Ford for life, Ascension, whatever your health system is. Today, especially with our younger generation, they're not tied to anything. They're going to get an appointment. If they had a bad experience, you don't get a second shot. It's not like maybe somebody said, oh, the doctor had a bad day and I'll try him next time. For somebody my age, for my children and my grandchildren, all it takes is one. And it's easier now. Now they can go get physician referrals. They don't even have to talk to somebody. So we really do need to kind of recognize that while we're going forward, the rest of the world is going forward at a much faster pace, but we have kind of a unique place where we need to be. We need to be digital enough to satisfy all of our younger customers, but we have to realize that we have an aging population that's getting larger by the day who are not primarily digital focused. How do we help those people? We've had Amazon Echoes in nursing homes and in places where they gather. And I don't know if you guys have watched the YouTube commercials, but those are pretty funny as they're trying to figure out how to navigate this. So we're kind of in a unique place. Everybody around us is pretty much all digital. Your bank doesn't say, hey, do you want a paper statement? No, it's not even an option anymore. We have to live that bridge. But I think our patients are losing their patience. That's probably the right way to put that. Our younger generation is frustrated. We are not where they want us to be digitally. We need to get there. But for us in security, we need to get there securely. And that's more difficult in our world.
Okay, so in your experience interfacing and working with healthcare organizations, where have you seen some challenges when it comes to securing the patient journey? Where are organizations tripping up a little bit?
I think personally for me, the biggest barrier to keeping our data secure is all of our legacy systems. Healthcare has the highest percentage of legacy applications in their environment. I don't know. At first, I thought maybe we're just loyal to vendors, but we just keep stuff until like it absolutely dies and we can't get one more penny out of it. But that also means that as a security team, I'm having to do a ton of workarounds for an application that only takes a 4-character password and no one's ever going to update it, or an application that now I have to write 3 different interfaces to get any data out of it because it's still Magic OS with Meditech. So for me, legacy is probably the biggest one, but budget probably has to be in there too. So if you look at how security is funded across kind of our peer groups, in finance, the security budget is about 10 to 11% of their overall IT budget. In manufacturing, it can be as high as 15%. For healthcare, it's 3, maybe 4 if they're having a good year. So not only are we dealing with all of this older stuff, but we're also behind because we can't afford to get maybe that next bridging tool, or the bridging tool we're using is one that finance used 5 years ago and they don't even use it anymore. But now we can't pivot fast enough to go to the newer, faster, better. And that's always going to be a struggle for us until healthcare is pretty much 100% digital. But for us, it's really, you have to spend money to protect your data, but they can't spend enough money to protect all of this old stuff. Not to mention, you want to buy patient beds, you want to buy cool new medical devices that we have to secure too. That's another whole interview. But it's really, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. We know that we're not the primary business. We're nowhere near the primary business. And it's a struggle to really say, here's the ROI for security, right? It's all about preventative. We're going to save you this much in fines. We're going to, streamline this here, but it's not really an actual, I can put my hands around and security did this for me. So we're always kind of in that justifying place. And then I think probably the third thing I would say is education. So I've read a stat the other day, and it kind of surprised me, but I guess maybe I'm just a hopeful human, that between 90 and 95% of cyber incidents are human errors. And probably 85% of that is phishing. So we in security are tasked with how do we get these folks to really pay attention to what's coming in. And for us, and maybe that's even a little different than our peers, but you're trying to get a nurse who's already overloaded because she has too many patients for her floor. She gets, 5 minutes worth of a lunch at a counter. And now I have to say, sit down and read this, do this training, absorb it. And when you're going through your email during your 5-minute lunch break, pay attention. Don't open that link or hover above it and really take the time to not do it. But to them, their goal is treating these patients. Email is a nuisance, and it's something that they use to figure out, who's on vacation or what changed in Chronos this week. So because we're not their primary function, we kind of have to do that bridge, and we have to get them to understand that while the patient data for them really isn't important security-wise, they just want it to be there when it's there. but it really means something to me. So we try and find those analogies. Like if you're talking to a physician and doesn't want to give you the info to change his password, he's busy, or he has the office manager do it. You ask, would you give me your PIN number to your bank account? That's, to me, that's equivalent. If I can't validate who you are, those records are worth that and more to me. So if you're willing to give me your PIN number without validating anything else, let's trade numbers. So it's really that, how do you get them to understand that security is kind of all of our job, right? It's not just my problem, it's everybody's problem, and they have a little bit of piece of it that they need to do. So, that the education piece is truly hard. I don't think it's going to get better. We are focused on helping people, it's my job to keep the data safe, right? Not theirs. That's a big piece for us. And we do the phishing, and everyone's doing the active campaigns, but truly it's our people, and we have to figure that out. It's got to make more sense to them somehow. Someday I'm going to get there.
Right. Okay, so, you mentioned digital transformation a little bit before. So now that we've entered this whole new realm of the way that we're doing our healthcare stuff from a patient perspective, what are some of the consequences of not securing privacy along this journey?
Well, you have to talk about the obvious, right? There's regulatory, there's fines, there's all of the things that come into play there. So first, what's your incident response plan? How much is it going to cost you if you do get tagged, right? Everyone knows the big R word, right? Ransomware. But for me personally, I think the one piece that we don't give enough credit to, and we need to because of our younger consumers, is all around that reputational damage and the PR hit that your health system takes when it's announced that there was a big breach. And 5 years ago, you might not have even heard it on the news. If you didn't go look at the OCR list, you probably didn't know that there was a breach. But this is becoming more and more mainstream media. You could be sitting on your couch watching the news, and all of a sudden your health system's on the news for a 15,000, 16,000 record breach. You may not understand what all that means, but you instantly have a trust issue, right? Oh my God, was that my data? Should I keep going to that doctor? What happened to my data? Our consumers are getting smarter, and they really do know they have choices now. That was never the case before. So we know it's expensive to get caught, right? No doubt about it. But I think for me, that reputational piece is one we underestimate. And it's also one we could use for leverage with our C-suite folks as we're talking about, hey, I need some more money. That I can translate into dollars. I know if you lose a certain percent of your market, it's going to cost this much. Your partner health system that you know is only 5 miles down the road, where do you think that person's going to go first? Now you just lost them. Are you going to get them back? Maybe. Depends on their age, truly, and maybe not. But that's one that we don't really talk about, but we do need to do a better job of quantifying, because it is a big deal for us.
It is definitely. I certainly agree with you on that one. You hardly hear, reputation come up, but it is such an important factor, because personally, I'm, maybe being the kind of consumer that you're talking about, I'm always Googling and looking up reviews for everywhere. So you make an excellent point. So I was hoping we could take this question maybe just a little bit broader. So in the current cybersecurity landscape, which is just, it's the Wild West out there, let's be frank. So in the larger aspect, why do we need to protect PHI? What can happen to protected health information if we don't secure it, along this journey or in general?
Well, let's think about that. So we all are aware of PCI and all the stuff that we have to do for credit card data, okay? The average cost of credit card data, if you were to purchase it off the dark web or a few other places, is about $3 a record. The latest estimates for the cost of a medical record, if it gets possessed, is $499. And I can tell you that 10 years ago, I was probably reporting that at $100 now, or $100 a record, $200 a record. The thing to realize about that is your credit card record has one little piece of information about you. Your healthcare record has, especially the financial side of it, has where's the last 3 places you lived? What's your average income? How is the foundation targeting you? And what group are you in for all of the fundraising stuff? But what's your social security number? What's your medical record number? Which, if you sell that overseas, now somebody gets Blue Cross treatment when they're in an accident because they have a dummy card made with your profile information on it. Everything you could possibly need to know about a person is tied up in one great big ribbon. So we kind of get sidetracked in the fact that we think, oh, we had a PHI breach and we got to focus on what happened, how do we fix it, how do we keep it from happening again. But the dollar value keeps going up as we become more and more of a target, and they're realizing 2 things. We are way behind our peers in securing our networks and our data. And 2, it's a gold mine if you can get the data out of a patient record. There's a lot of things that you can do with it, and we're really not, it's not a balanced playing field. If you're in finance, that credit card data is locked down tighter than a drum. We can't do that because we're so far behind. Now we're making better strides. Believe me, it's way better than it was 5 years ago. But that whole presence of understanding everything that's in that record that's being compromised and all of the other pieces that it can lead to, it's terrifying. And it's a difficult thing to do, especially when you're trying to do it with a legacy system, right? How do I secure your crazy little system that allows a 4-character password, right? And no special symbols? That's way above us. So it's a challenge. It's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. So, when I think about the patient journey and good cybersecurity practices, I think about the patient portal, right? I'm entering in all my information. But are there any other aspects to the patient journey that we're seeing today that also need good cybersecurity practices that might not seem as, as obvious as what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, the people part, right? We are the weakest link in the chain. So, we think about what are we protecting on a computer? What did I send to my little handheld? And am I using MDM or am I using MAM to make sure that anything that could be PHI on this device is protected? But my consumer doesn't do that, right? My consumer can log on to my chart if you're Epic, and I'm storing some of that local. You may or may not have it encrypted on your phone, but we are that piece that gets forgotten all of the time. We talk about things. We print things. Now, in the grand scheme, if it's my stuff, great. But if it's somebody else's stuff and we're talking about that between coworkers, we're talking about that. I don't know if you were in a hospital probably 10 years ago, you saw all the signs, don't discuss patient information in the elevator. Now, I haven't seen those in a little while. Maybe it's because they think we're doing better. But I truly think the person piece is where we don't think about it enough. We do security training and awareness, but do we really go out and start the same way we do threat hunting? Are we doing any kind of behavioral analytics? What are we looking at? How are our customers behaving where we could say, holy crap, why do they keep printing to this printer over in the middle of nowhere? And it's patient data, we're leaving it around. Or just in an elevator. Have you ever been in an elevator, listen to somebody say something you know dang well they shouldn't? Do you say something? I do. But do you? Do we even hold each other accountable, right? We know we shouldn't be talking about it. We get kind of desensitized. You're in a hospital all day. there's PHI around you. We all tend to think about electronic PHI, but we have a whole bunch of it everywhere, and it's all just as much at risk. It's how much we want to put into understanding that we own some of that protection plan.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a loaded question I'm going to ask you next, but how can we tailor the patient journey to, be beneficial to consumers such as myself through like emails or maybe patient portals without compromising security?
That's actually not as loaded as you think. So a lot of us have been working on this concept of your digital front door, right? But there's really 3 doors. So there's your digital front door, and that's how you're attracting all of your new people, right? Like, how are you marketing? How are you getting them to come into that door? Your doctor's offices, promoting your portals. Hey, this is how you can be more involved. This is how you can get more information. So your digital front door is more all about who are my new people. But you've also got 2 other doors. You've got your digital side door. And that's really, how do I keep the patients that I have happy? And what is the right ratio? So is it, how much proactive outreaching do I do? How much personalized communication can I do without it being overflow? But then really being clear of, here's the next steps. Here's maybe the next thing that I think you should look at when you're maybe in your My Chart and they say, hey, you got the little triangle that says you didn't get these 5 tests this year. Do you take that data and you kind of push on some of that to get that business back in the door? And then lastly, that side door, the biggest piece for me is convenience, right? What am I doing to make this access easier without me sleeping even less every night, right? Like the patients are demanding that they can get to this. And for your existing patients, that's a big deal. They really want to be able to still feel connected, but I want them connected safely. So what are all those access options that the hospital can offer, but also that everybody else in that chain feels comfortable that we can still cover that? And then the last door is really kind of your VIP door, or what I call our physician door. So they need to get access to a lot more patient information than any of your other 2 doors, right? And they've got to have it now. And I can't make it difficult. And I just need to be able to provide it to them. Now, I kind of break that door up into a couple. One, the biggest one for me is that referring physician, right? If I have a credentialed physician, I know he's credentialed, I've got him where I need him on the network, and I can understand what he needs to get to. But as we're doing a lot more referrals and we're doing handoffs, the level of access that I need to give a person who's not my person, right? I don't have any ties to this person. He didn't go through our credentialing, but I still have to allow him to see patient records. That VIP door for me is probably where I get the most heartburn, but I also know we need to do the most work in that area. If we start losing our physicians, well, security is technically a dissatisfier because I make them have a password. I know that, but the more that I can make available to them while we can still sleep at night, the better for everybody, right? If the physicians are happy, that's kind of our equation of happy wife, happy life, happy doctor, happy hospital. But they do have some really complex needs, and I need to be able to respond to that, but not give away the farm just because they want to get into
it. Right.
Hopefully that answered the question.
It did. Okay, so I want to switch gears temporarily right now. So in the United States, we don't have a national patient identifier, right? So if we did, how could this benefit the patient journey?
Oh my God, it's exponential, right? I don't know if so if you have older parents, maybe somebody on this call, my in-laws have a folder bigger than my laptop that they take with them whenever they're going to all of their visits, because I was here and I had this test, and last time you guys couldn't find that test, and I want to make sure that I have it. So now I've caused a problem, because now I'm making these people drag paper, patient information all around, or I'm delaying care. So if I come to your urgent care and I say I was at so-and-so health system 2 days ago with, fever, whatever my symptoms were, but now they're 10 times worse, urgent care doesn't know what test you did. They have no idea how you took care of that patient. So now somebody in the caregiver chain has to stop and call that system, or maybe somebody is credentialed to them and they can look on the portal, but we're causing a stop. I have to go get more information before I can treat this patient. Let's not even go of the nightmare of allergies, right? You have medication allergies. I don't know that. I can't see that. So we're potentially harming people by not being able to figure this out. Now, within individual health systems, there are some that are doing a great job. You're getting one MRN. And even if you have 2 or 3, we're getting much better with the fuzzy logic about these 4 entities are really Carrie Weissel. And anywhere I travel inside that health system, I'm Carrie Weissel. Do I honestly think the way healthcare is structured in the US that we'll ever get to that? No. I don't. And honestly, we know we're causing some harm, but I just don't know. We don't even have a single EMR, right? Epic, Cerner, Meditech, Alteryx. You could bounce all over that. None of them talk to each other the same way. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say that you probably Epic and Cerner, if you wanted to go there, that those 2 are probably the most compatible. What if you've still got magic version Meditech because you're a rural hospital in, Idaho or Washington, or, just a rural hospital anywhere? That inequality is always going to be there. So you're always going to have these bigger players and you're always going to have the little players. They're all trying to treat and help the same populations, and they have the same problems, but I don't see us in the future, at least not while I'm still of working age, of ever getting to a national patient identifier. I don't think we're going to be able to.
Okay. I want to switch gears maybe a little bit again here. So I want to talk today about the importance of encryption. So what are some challenges that leaders face when it comes to the topic of encryption?
Oh my God, where do we start with that one?
I know, sorry.
Well, I think the general population accepts that we have to encrypt stuff. In your general, my laptop, my administrative desktop, we know we have to do it. And there's this little thing called high tech that kind of says you need to do it too, if you want to have any chance of having a not tearful meeting with the OCR. But where we still struggle the most with encryption in healthcare, hands down, medical devices. It is, if you put encryption on a medical device, the first freaking time that vendor has to come back out and look at it, they're going to see it and be like, oh, that's what broke it. Now you got to take it off and start over. And it's critical. I mean, we have some of these giant devices, especially in imaging, that have huge hard drives. They're storing short-term data to transfer to long-term data, and they're at risk. In a hospital environment, if you had on a uniform or a badge and you went into a clinical area and said, I'm here to fix this PC that's attached to this ultrasound or that's attached to this CT, you picked it up and walked out with it, I don't think anybody would stop you. And whatever the last probably 30 days of modalities work is on that device, and we couldn't fix it. And same thing, you've got mobile devices. As we're talking about, I want to get to email. I want to be able to work from wherever I am, which we really should stop doing that. But while we're doing it, now we have to be able to either secure that whole device with an MDM program where I can wipe it if I'm afraid that something's at risk, or we're getting better and starting to apply MAM, right? So I only need access to these couple applications on your phone, and I don't need to wipe it if you leave. I can get rid of it. The other piece with MAM is we're really starting to get back some really useful data in how those programs are being used, times that they're being used, places that were being used. I wouldn't call it full behavioral analysis, but there are definitely some things security-wise that I could tune and scale back during those off hours when we're not doing that. So I think general population, we understand we need to encrypt this stuff. Anybody who supports a home health nursing group knows those laptops better be encrypted because they're going to be in someone's trunk and disappear. But I think as we start going out into medical device world and really vendor device world in general, those are the places that we need to focus and really start saying, no, you have to allow encryption. You're putting us, and it's not fair, right? I'm the hospital entity. We're using that device to treat our patients, but I'm paying to have it maintained. I'm paying for support, but I can't even get it to my base level of support because it's a medical device. So I have all the risk and the vendor has none, right? They're going to give me this box and say, hey, I sold it to you, now it's yours. It's my data, but it's held hostage on their box and I don't get to protect it. And it drives me crazy.
Okay, so when it comes to HIPAA compliant email messaging, because that's still such a huge part of what's going on in the patient journey right now, receiving emails from your provider and then your specialist and then this person and then that person. What are some of the top challenges that leaders are facing with sending these messages that have to be HIPAA compliant?
Email's a little easier because we've come farther with that. DLP, right? That's why we kind of went down that path in healthcare security, at least, and trying to understand what are the big chunks of data we're trying to protect. So hopefully at most hospitals, if you tried to send an email that had a medical record number in it, it's going to get stopped. And depending on where you're at in your DLP progress, you're going to either send a message back to that person and say, hey, we didn't let this email flow because you have inappropriate information in it. In some cases, we send that message and we tag it, and then we're storing that for our repeat offenders, where we can do a little bit more education maybe about what they're sending. Now, sometimes that can backfire on you, like January 31st, when Social Security numbers are part of DLP and everyone tries to forward their W-2 home. You're probably going to have some issues with your DLP platform that day. So I think for me, email is easier. Even Microsoft has some pieces of DLP built right into their Office 365 program. The harder one that I always struggled with was secure texting. So a few years ago, a lot of years ago, the health systems usually had their own internal texting, right? So you had this web landing page and you could scroll down and pick your person. And on there, we all had these big splash messages. Don't, no PHI, don't discuss patients. If you wouldn't say it in the elevator, don't text it. Well, we all know how that doesn't work. But it was on us to just kind of say, we have to police this group. And now we have tools that we can take advantage of where it is truly encrypted end to end. And that's obviously what we want, right? We know from behavior, you can't trust people to do what you tell them to do. Even, but we can't. So as a backup to that, yes, I'm going to let you text and I'm going to let patients text you, but you're going to do it in this platform. Now, that is where it gets tricky for me, at least for a security professional. If I'm a nurse and I'm texting out, I can have this application on my phone. It's on the desktops, however I want to access that. But this patient device doesn't have all that. So that text from my patient back to me is probably not encrypted. So do we then say, try and word our text out so that we don't require them to give us PHI? We're working on training some of our nursing staff to make statements through text, not ask questions through text, because we don't want to get somebody mistakenly to add PHI in that last little piece. Now, I think at some point we probably will be able to say, if you want to participate in our texting program, you have to download this app, right? Kind of like everybody, go to the Apple Store or Google Play Store. We're not there yet, but the fact that we have the ability to do this with an application is light years better than where we were before. And I think we'll eventually get to the piece where that patient has to register to get a text or reply to me. But today, that's kind of a gap in the process for us that we right now are trying to behaviorally modify.
Okay. Are there any other HIPAA challenges along the patient journey that we should be aware of?
Oh my God, where do we start? Specific to the patient journey, I think we've all been involved in this promoting interoperability pieces. And I know that for most of my peers that have been in this as long as I have, we worked really, really hard to make all these rules in place where only the right person can get to the right data at the right time. And that's starting to get loosened up, right? So now we've gone from, we want to lock it down and they only get what they need, to, you know what? Maybe we should start sharing with each other. That is a fundamental shift for us. This is not something we're used to doing. We're used to saying, no, you don't need it. I'll give you these 4 things, but I won't give you the last 5. Now we're being pushed to share more and more information. And it'll be interesting to see where this whole shift ends up at. And do we keep shifting to more and more shared environments? And I'm not talking HIEs, because those are well defined. We know what we're going to give you. We know what we expect back. But we are now saying you have the ability to request an API for a certain data set of our patient information, which 2 years ago I would have said, that's not happening. You're not getting it. So I think HIPAA in general, we have, the basics. We got it. It's 2006. It's 2022. We know what we're doing. But as we keep shifting some of these pieces of promoting interoperability, there's going to be, hopefully here in the next couple of years, we're going to have a checkpoint where we say, all right, are we at the optimal amount of data we should be sharing? And how much, today I can't tell you how much the risk has been escalated, our risk level, by sharing this data. Do I have gut feelings? And am I terrified every time someone asks for an API? Yes. But I think we will get this balanced out to where it's not just this, if you ask for it, we'll consider it, we'll give it to you. We'll start really narrowing down why we're doing this and what the end goal is, and we'll get better at it. And we'll sleep 20 minutes more eventually once we have it a little more cleaned up.
Okay. So you touched upon this before, much earlier in our conversation, but do you have any tips for leaders at hospitals or health systems on how to talk to the C-suite or maybe the board and get, not only funding, but the support they need for these imperative cybersecurity practices for the patient experience?
Yeah, board meetings, those are fun. I think really we're getting better at it, but we really need to understand how security aligns with all of the other strategies, right? We tend to think of ourselves as this little island out here. And whenever we go talk to people about money, it's like, well, just give it to me because you know how much it's going to cost if we don't do it. But for me, the approach of here are my pillars or here are my pieces of my strategy, I always look for where can I say security is going to enhance that piece of the strategy. So some of them are easy. The digital doors, it's easy to say security is part of that, right? But in some of their M&A work, and as we're going out, and that's a big thing right now too, as we're starting to see post-pandemic, some of these smaller health systems that really struggled to stay afloat, well, now they're becoming parts of mergers. And I can say, hey, I can help lower the level of risk in this entire process. If we can get some of our tool sets ahead of this, we're part of that. So for me, it's really about how do I marry what I'm trying to do in the security space with the rest of the initiatives so that I'm but I'm seen as a player at the table, not a barrier. Because forever, we've been the barrier. Oh, you can't do that. I can't secure it. Now I got to say, yes, but I'm going to need some help.
Right. Well said. That definitely made me think there. So we also touched upon this just very briefly earlier in our conversation as well. Do you have any tips on, training staff surrounding securing the patient journey?
Actually, yes. And this is an old school one, but I still insist it every place I go. Every person whose title starts with cyber has to spend at least a month in a hospital every year. And for me, personally, there's two places that I really focus on them going. One is they need to do rounds with desktop engineering. They need to understand that we cause a lot of pain in the patient experience, because if I have a broken printer, I have a broken laptop, I have an angry nurse. Now that angry nurse has now got to go into the patient room after she's been on the phone with a help desk. She's tried to unjam this damn printer. She's tried to, get the blue screen. Now she's mad. So now I literally caused a patient to probably have a bit of a negative experience because now she's got to go take care of them and she's still mad. So getting my teams to understand that, we're way over here in this chain, right? We don't talk to the patients. They don't come see us. Heck, most of my new hires don't even talk to each other, but that making it human. But the second half of that, the next 2 weeks, is a clinical follow through. So they will be assigned a nurse partner and at least 2 floors. I try not to do the ED just because it's already crazy there, but we always pick at least one med surge floor and we always pick at least one specialty floor. The specialty floor I prefer is cardiac. And the reason I prefer that is because that is 90% of my shadow IT people right there. So they need to understand that even though some of this in cardiology, our standard workstations, all of our standard platforms are part of the equation, now there's this shadow group over here that is managing their own server, their own network. We have to work with them. So my tips for training security people is to get them out of their comfort zone and drop them into the patient experience, because until you do that, I'm just a face, or, I'm anonymous. My job is this. It has nothing to do with that. They really do need to see this is why we're truly here.
What an interesting perspective. I cover this a lot for healthcare innovation, and I can't say that I've heard that the way you put the training before. That's really great.
It started for me in my infrastructure days. The first time I managed the service desk, what I did was partner service desk and desktop engineering. So each new service desk analyst went out and spent 2 weeks with desktop, because, those are the two that usually talk to each other the most, but I want them exposed to their world. Vice versa, I had a desktop engineer sit for 2 weeks on the phone and hear the frustration and all of those nurses' voices, because if you think about it, the service desk gets the bad part of the conversation, and the desktop guy gets to be the hero, right? Oh, I'm
Right.
here, I'm going to save the day. Well,
Right.
you
Right.
need to
That's
see what
interesting.
your partner is dealing with too. So that's kind of where that started for me, but it's definitely, you have to do it. There has to be a tie there.
Okay. So before I ask you for final thoughts, just briefly, where do you think security is headed along the patient journey in the next few years?
I think personally, we're gonna get pushed even more out of our comfort zones. We really like to know A, B, C equals D, right? It's got to be contained. We're very linear thinkers. I think as we keep getting more and more into this digital transformation, we have to start, I don't want to say relaxing the rules because it's not that, but we have to start being able to understand there has to be flexibility. And typically in the security world, it's not flexible. It's, I said so, right? That's how it's got to be because I'm the one who knows what we're doing. But I think the hospitals have a little bit of this too. So what I really talk about strategically with our customers are security can't be an afterthought, because when you do that, now I'm the bad guy. And I know you're afraid to bring me in early because you're afraid I'm going to say no, but it's truly the opposite. If you can get me involved in M&A during due diligence, I'm going to give you some better questions to answer. If you can get me involved in any of these strategic workshops that are happening where we want to tweak a whole process, I've got some valuable input, but we got that negative, no, we can't do it, tied to us just because of our job. But if we could get ahead of that, we might be able to really participate. But we have to get out of our own headspace too, right? I can't sit in a meeting, like I do, sit in the meeting, have it in the back of my head going, oh God, this is going to be horrible. But I'm smiling and I'm saying, you know what? Let's talk about what are our options. And I might even be able to save you money. I may say, let's virtualize that. It's easier for me to manage. And you never even thought of that. But we're getting pushed more and more to be at the table earlier. It's a good thing, but it's a scary thing because that's not who we are, right? So it's growth, but I think it'll be good for everybody if we can continue that shift. And I think the digital doors, they're going to drag us kicking and screaming, whether we want to go or not. But even expanding that outside of the digital footprint, we have a lot to offer, and we have a ton of data. We know what's broken. Just don't tell anybody. We might have to change that too.
So you're great. These have been great answers. So before we move on to the next portion of the webinar, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom for our audience today?
Words of wisdom. We don't sleep much to be very philosophical, but I really think, and in my role throughout the years, at the end of the day, if I go home and I feel like I helped one person understand why what I do is important, it's a good day. And for me, that is kind of my guiding thing. If I took one frustrated nurse and helped turn that around, and she understands why we did what we did, and we get her back up and treating a patient, it's a great day. Now, I may get an hour's sleep, and we got some nation state jerk that's deciding to interrupt that, but truly find what it is that resonates with you to get you through that positive piece. Our lives are 90% negative, right? Hair on fire. Somebody did something. We're always in reactionary mode. You have to be able to pull out something personal every day and say, this is why I'm here. Because it's hard to drag yourself back the next day when you know it's just going to be hair on fire negative. But that's the job we signed up for. But truly finding how to make that feel good at the end of the day, it's just priceless.
Well said. So right now, I'd like to pass this off to Lily from Powbox. So a few words for us. Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Ono. I'm with Powbox, who is the sponsor of today's webinar. Thank you so much, Carrie and Jeanette, for an amazing discussion today. Lots of good nuggets there. Powbox is in the business of making communications secure for healthcare. We're the leader in HIPAA compliant communications for healthcare, and communications is a big part of the patient journey. So one of the tools that we offer at Powbox is marketing automation and email marketing called Powbox Marketing. So that allows healthcare organizations to send personalized email marketing that's HIPAA compliant. It's a really important tool when it comes to the patient journey and making sure that you're getting the right communications out to your patient, but in a secure way. So with Powbox, you can use dynamic fields to personalize messages with PHI because every email is sent securely and encrypted. We also have just a very intuitive drag and drop builder for building amazing emails, and then an automated campaign function so that you can automate your workflow journeys and just create a patient journey that can be replicated and automated very easily. So if you have any interest in learning more about that, communication is a huge part of that patient journey. We want to make it easier. We want to make it secure for your patients. You can look us up at powbox.com. And thank you so much for today. I think we're going to go into Q&A, so I'll give it back to Jeanette. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lily. Carrie, we have time for about one question here. So what is...
Can I talk too much? It's okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's perfect. But, we got to, of course, we have to let people get back to their day, even though I'm sure they'd like to listen to us, all afternoon. But what's your take on the recently published congressional report, Cybersecurity's Patient Safety, from Senator Mark Warner? Good title.
My take is he should have done it 5 years ago. And it's always good to bring it out, right? Let's talk about it. But what I felt about that article is it was a lot of talk, but not a lot of plan, or it very clearly explained we're having these issues. But for me, this should have been earlier, and there's not really a clear plan of how do we get from A to B. It kind of was just this is everything that's wrong, which is great, get it out in the public. But I always prefer, if I'm going to bring a problem forward, I'm going to have some kind of idea of how I want to fix it. Now, I might not have the answer, but I just didn't feel like he really gave us a lot of options for kind of what he dumped out there. Hopefully that answered your question, but it was kind of just my opinion on that.
Again, very well said. But like I mentioned, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. And I would like to thank Carrie for today's excellent webinar. And I would also like to thank Powbox for making today's program possible. Finally, I want to thank everyone in our audience for joining us. We hope you'll join us in the future for another healthcare innovation webinar. This concludes today's presentation.
Thank you.